Okay, Call to Adventure. It's kind of an interesting case. It's a game that I acquired for particular reasons. Storytelling type aspect that's developing your character. Some of it the thought that maybe, I don't know, that maybe it would be more tarot-like than it actually is. The use of tarot type cards, tarot size cards, doesn't really do much for it. The only thing it does is there's lots of room on these cards to present information, but there's probably not a need for that much room. It does provide some differentiation between those cards and the more playable hero cards and anti-hero cards. Oh, on my wrap video or second playthrough or whatever, well, on the wrap portion, I was talking about the cooperative or solo play, where I couldn't tell where the anti-hero cards have their little marking. Well, I found it. It's a tiny, tiny little skull here, which looks nothing like what is represented in the rules. And again, when you start speaking in icon language and the icons don't exactly match, I would say that's problematic. How do they show it here? They show it like this. It would be kind of cool if they pointed to it, because it is hard to see. I'm sure I would have found it if I had decided to play that version. And I do think that version may be the more interesting, simply because I like the balance of being able to play both against the game system as a cooperative group and also for your own victory points and padding, which is what I really like about the kind of play that I like in, say, Mage Knight or in Republic of Rome, where different perceptions of what victory is and everything come into play. And I have my own very strong views on that, but I do kind of enjoy arguing against other people's views. I've gone over the components in the intro. The cards are good quality. The bigger ones are actually easier to shuffle if you can reach your hand around them properly to do a shuffle bridge. These guys are a little, because they're smaller, the inherent stiffness in the cards causes them to be difficult to shuffle, and they're kind of small decks, so in terms of total number of cards. So it's kind of difficult to shuffle them. Of course, many players will just sleeve things and make them impossible to shuffle anyway. The rules, I don't know how much I mentioned this, there's a little bit of ambiguity, a little bit of difficulty processing them. You know, it's a fucking Euro. They tend to use pictures and stuff and examples and things like that to try to express the rules rather than doing it clearly and simply in text. I don't find that particularly beneficial. It leads to sloppiness in the text, too much color, too much gloss, whatever. But it's not a complex game. You can probably figure it out with a little bit of fiddling around. The tiles, I've already mentioned during play that they cast well. They're made out of a sturdy material. They don't look likely to damage. When you throw them, they're about as likely to give you a good random result as larger dice are. Larger dice, sometimes it feels like you don't get a really good throw off of them. One thing I didn't mention, I didn't use, is this little score sheet thing. I don't know why. I find it so difficult to use something that's a limited resource. That's why I can't play the legacy style games, because it's like, oh, I'm destroying something. Well, even if I'm just destroying part of the score pad, it's tough for me. I've done it and probably would here. There is one little odd thing. It comes with a little bag, which serves no purpose in play, but is a way to keep the experience tokens from jumbling all over the place. And since you can kind of fold it into the insert, since this thing's got a nice cover that doesn't come off too easily, it keeps everything, you know, nice and in place. So what I expected from the game, which was kind of a nice storytelling development type thing, absolutely it does not meet my expectations on that. And the tarot-ness absolutely didn't meet my expectations or hopes on that. On the other hand, neither of those things were terribly important to me. On my side, it was more for my wife. I enjoyed the gameplay itself. It's very opportunistic for the most part. Right from you're dealt, you know, 6 cards and you have to pick, you know, a set of 3. You're dealt a pair of each type of card, your origin, your motivation, and your destiny. And you can find synergies within them, so that's appealing. And then throughout play, you're hunting down those same synergies. Because, quite simply, you can't do things that you don't have the capability to generate tiles for usually. You could branch out, but there are advantages usually to trying to reflect your strengths and to make more one-sided characters of whatever type in order to meet your destiny card, which gives you your victory points. That can give other players clues as to what the destiny card that you have hidden might actually be. There's a little bit they can do towards that, but for the most part, they probably aren't going to be able to use that information against you too much. There is some dickiness that you can play when you turn to the anti-hero cards, especially. There's nastiness that you can do to the other player. More of that baked in, and the first time I played, both players went towards the light side. The second time, both players went towards the dark side. With the players aiming towards the dark side, it was a lot harder to complete the goals, because the dark side player is using their anti-hero. A significant number of the anti-hero cards work against other players, and therefore they don't help you, and they hurt someone else. On the bright side, those anti-hero cards tend to be pretty easy to play. The hero cards, you may need to be going for the right challenge, and getting them played is important because they're worth a victory point each if you have them played. So far, I have not seen anybody successfully get an ally yet in either play. Seen a lot of adversaries go down, though. They are really just challenges with a special rule associated with them for the most part. Balance-wise, you know, I think some of the initial cards that you can get are not necessarily balanced. We saw that where certain synergies were chosen that I felt put the player at a disadvantage, and they might have been better off not playing for the synergy and instead going with the more traditional, hey, I get experience from my origin, rather than, I don't know what the card was. It was one where you get to expend a couple of experience in order to retry a challenge. Well, that doesn't help you if you don't have an easy path to get experience. And that's the whole thing. The origin card usually gives you experience. The motivation card usually gives you a way to use your experience. If you replace the origin card with one that lets you use experience, it's not that great a thing. Also, some of the victory point choices, some of the destiny cards aren't the best matches towards generating points. That's a little problematic. There's a fair amount of luck in the game. I have no problem with that. This is not a game where, you know, the person who figures out the best engine is necessarily at a huge advantage. More likely, you take your initial 3 cards and you make your choices. Your initial 6, you make your 3 choices, and you end up with something that's plausible and looks like it's going to be good, and then, well, that initial tableau could end up kind of screwing you up where you don't have anything that you can take. You may end up getting bad casts of the runes. All kinds of things can come in that can get you away from being able to, exercise that sort of usual modern Euro, let me optimize my situation. But I prefer a lot of luck in my games. I prefer to be able to make choices where I don't feel like only my choice matters, because when I do feel that, then I feel like I should be able to calculate everything out. And this game isn't really hiding a whole lot of stuff. Although it is possible, like I said, some of the cards may be unbalanced, and it is possible that you may end up choosing something that is far too weak, or being dealt, randomly, just stuff that's too weak, and that the apparent value of the synergies doesn't make up for making certain choices that kind of violate the ideal behind the game. I don't have a whole hell of a lot to say about it. The play is fun. It's enjoyable. It's a light game, and what decisions you do have to make are at the level that I kind of like. The icons can get in the way a little bit, in the sense that, I don't know how else you'd express things. You're playing a card game where you're trying to collect sets of things and whatnot, and it's a workable solution. It's just, for me, that's never as easy to process as other forms of information. Again, I don't think that lots of text would help. One thing that I did notice was that on the, let's dig back in here. On the main cards, the challenge cards, they have both things face up for when they're sitting in the tableau, which is useful at that point. But once you place a card upside down that you've gained it, the information is now upside down. And I think actually it would have been better to have this upside down in the tableau, because it's easier to pick up cards and examine them from there than it is when they're sitting on your player board underneath other cards or whatever. It's a minor gripe. It did cost a little bit of extra mental, mechanical type energy to process that information, but that's about it. Overall, I had fun with it. I could actually have seen my wife and I playing this a fair amount, like we did with things like Betrayal on the House the Hill, or Betrayal at the House on the Hill, or not Dominion. Dominion really kind of ate up a lot of our gameplay for a long time, but maybe more like Mage Knight or something like that. And I'm not saying it's a game like Mage Knight, but in the sense that it provides a fun fantasy theme type thing without a lot of, in this particular case, without a lot of, oh geez, we're trying to beat this, scenario or something like this that's particularly difficult. This is more of a lighthearted type play. But yeah, I mean, this would totally be something that I would enjoy playing in a group. I think the fact that it's not really a brain burner or anything, that's more pleasing to me in terms of stuff that I'm going to be playing opposed anyway. Whatever reason, 18xx or something doesn't really feel that way to me in the same way, because the really hard decision points aren't all that often. So, unlike if you take a look at something like Mage Knight, you're really every single card play, you're really expending so much effort on. I didn't have a lot of fun with it, but it was addictive for whatever that's worth. And I could see Gloomhaven kind of being in the same kind of way, where you're trying to figure out these puzzles of using your cards to get forward with something. This is nothing like that. This is a fun game, and nothing but fun. But that nothing but fun means that, you don't feel as challenged. So you play it a few times, and then you put it aside. It would get a few plays from me, though, which is good enough at this point in my life. Assuming I had people to play it with stuff. Alright, up it goes.